morning, folks. Welcome in, everyone. I see so many familiar faces in chat, bright and early. Carrie, Rasim, Nuruddin, Sean, Tanya, Noor. It is so good to see you folks this morning. My name is Voodoo Val, and I'm going to be your host this morning for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. I'm very excited about what we have to jump into today. Over the past week and the first day of this week, we've been doing challenges for Photoshop that I have themed around science fiction, which has been super fun. What's up, Rasim? Camilo, good to see you. Patty, Susan, Jim, Jan, Eric. It's good to see you, my friend. But it's been a good time. We've been doing science fiction themed challenges. We've been creating space-scapes. We've been creating space explorers. We've been making space badges and all kinds of super awesome things. And today we're going to be continuing along those lines. So I am going to jump over to the landing page for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge and show you folks how you can get involved with the challenges with me. I'll give you a little bit of information about what we're doing and how that ties into previous days. But first, please make sure that if you're over on YouTube right now, that you head over to behance.net/live. That is where I am reading the chat. That is where everybody is hanging out. It is your best bet if you want to communicate with me in the community, and it's also the place where you will need to be if you would like a chance to win some pretty nifty prizes throughout the day. So head over to behance.net/live to join what's going on over here. All right, so I'm going to pan over to the landing page, which actually looks like this. If you folks go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, it will take you here. And it just says Daily Creative Challenge, build your Photoshop skills in just 9 challenges. And this is the challenge segment from February 3rd to the 14th, to the day of love. So how does it work? Well, every morning, you guys can come here, and at 8 a.m.-ish Pacific time, a new challenge will be revealed to you. As you can see down here, these are all of the challenges that we have done so far. Like I said, layers and selections was our first one. We transformed ourselves or a friend or another picture of a person into a space explorer. The second challenge, bevel and emboss, is we took a shape. We sort of designed a space badge, and we applied bevel and emboss settings to that shape in order to make it look a little bit more realistic. We did one on patterns where we created a custom pattern to apply to our badge or to another piece of Space Explorer equipment, which was really fun. We did shapes and layer masks where we created a robot sidekick. Yesterday we used distortion filters to design a space nebula, which was a lot of fun. And then today we're going to do a little bit of compositing. So as you can probably tell, throughout these challenges, we have actually been working our way up to sort of equipping ourselves with all the things necessary to explore space. You know, we've got our space badge so people know who we are, where we come from, what we stand for. Some of you folks even made some awesome space armor, which was really cool. Obviously, the first day we made ourselves into explorers. And since then, we've been kind of setting the stage, setting the mood for a little space scene, right? We created our space yesterday, and today we have got a kind of a continuation of yesterday's challenge where we are going to composite in some planets and things and get the nebula populated with a bunch of space stuff, which I think is going to be fabulous. So I'm going to pull up the getting started file. So I've created a file for you folks because I know that sometimes it's not possible for everyone to do all of these challenges, and with some of them being related to each other, it can be a little daunting and maybe a little unappetizing to try these challenges if you have to have done work previously. So if you click this getting started or get started under the compositing challenge, which is today's challenge, it will actually bring you to a file that looks like this. It'll have a little nebula like this is the one that I created yesterday. The starter file that you folks will have the very first one that I created. So if I'm going to hit F here just so you folks can see a full screen of it. It just says Challenge 6, Space-scape, combine shapes and images to create a custom space-scape. So I have included this for you, so there's no need to go back and do previous challenges if you really don't have the time. If you would like to go back and do previous challenges and make your own nebula, I highly recommend it because we had so much fun with it yesterday. I'm going to pull up the Discord real quick. If you actually go to bit.ly/PS Discord, making sure that P and the S are capitalized, it will bring you to the Discord, which looks like this. And everybody has been posting all of their work. You can see all of these fabulous nebulas that everyone has been sharing over the last day. There's so many different awesome colors, and some people actually already went that extra mile and threw some planets in there. Valentine, I see this. I see you. You are going for it. This is awesome. Some people using, it looks like Liquify, right? Yeah, PMAC, not sure, but Liquify makes everything better, right? Indeed. I'm loving it. So everyone has kind of been oh, that is just super cool. This is so neat. Well done. Who is that? KK Shuni? I hope I didn't butcher that name, but well done. That's super awesome. But everyone's been creating such like wild, awesome nebulas. You might want to jump in to the challenge if you have not already, because this has been a blast. Some of these are just so cool. Do you put hearts in space? Tan? I'm loving it. Yeah, you guys have done a wonderful job. You guys can jump into the previous challenge if you want to make your own nebulas, if you want to use your own colors. Otherwise, if you cannot do that, I have created mine and left it for you so that you don't have to go through all that extra stuff to participate today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into my first view here. Oops. You know what? I was selected on my OBS, hitting the change scene button, which is also the view changing button in Photoshop. If you are selected in Photoshop and you hit your F key, you can actually toggle between 3 different views, one without any of the UI and menu system, and one that has like everything there where everything is secure unless you're zoomed out of your project. If you can see all of the edges of your project, you can't toggle this around. And then the second one is kind of the same thing, except you can't see your layer or your file names, but you can toggle and drag your file around. Even if you can see all its sides, which is pretty cool. So another thing that I've included in this file, aside from just the nebula, is I kind of made you folks a default planet. Just something interesting to get the ball rolling, but we are going to create some planets and things together. I'm going to snag some images. I actually want to make sure I've loaded my library up properly so that I have all of my images that I'm going to use, and we're going to jump into it. So I'm going to grab my nebula, and I'm just going to extend this to the borders of the canvas. Because I don't want anything showing. I'm just going to go ahead and do this for now. That works for me. I'm going to hide that text, and then I'm going to place this planet someplace, maybe over here, maybe in the vast darkness over here, or maybe down here. I'm just going to put this over here because I'm going to give it a little bit of ring so that it looks kind of like Saturn and make it look fancy. But first, I want to get all of my assets that I'm going to use in here. Alex Lazarus, good to see you. No, you are the best, sir. Great job on Adobe Live this past week. You did a wonderful job. I want to also share a resource with you folks. If you're looking for images to composite into this scene, you can actually go to NASA's website. NASA has pictures of planets and spacescapes and all kinds of things that are public domain that you folks can use. They are not copyrighted. They are open to the public to use for whatever they want, which excuse me, which is really awesome. And I think that you should, you know, jump over and check that out and maybe select some cool images to throw into your project today. I could not include any specifically in the download files, but you guys can see which ones I'm working with here, so that you can maybe grab some of the same ones that I'm using if you prefer. They are in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got this moon image that I think is pretty cool. And because the background of this is black, I think I'm first just going to scroll through my blending modes and see if I can't put this on a blending mode like lighten or screen. That will just take out, I think lighten is going to do it. I just want to, it'll get rid of the background for me so I don't have to do any extra heavy lifting. And I am going to grab this and I'm just going to put this up in the corner over here. Now again, I do have limited time today. You folks know that I don't always have all the time in the world to do this, so I'm just gonna kind of quickly composite some cool stuff into the scene. If I had more time, you guys know that I would spend more time doing it. But for you and your project, you folks have all the time in the world. So if you want to pay some extra attention to detail when it comes to these challenges, please do. I'm going to toggle over to this is my little astronaut that I found. I thought he was pretty cool how he's just hanging in the corner here. So I'm going to grab that. I'm actually going to duplicate that. I'm just making a selection of him right quick. I'm clicking Control J just to get him out of that original file without that border and without the excess space there. And you could do a lot of different things if you find yourself with an image similar to this where you need to cut him out of the background or whatever it is that you're doing. So one method is you could use the lasso tool. You could come in, you could trace all around him, which is kind of tedious. You could also use the pen tool. If you click P on your keyboard, it'll bring up the pen tool. And instead of doing shape up here at the top, you could do path, or you could do shape, and you could do selection. You could make a shape around him and select that. There's a lot of different ways you can use the pen tool for selections. But what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to check out these tools here. I'm going to grab, I'm going to select over here on my magic wand tool, and I'm just going to hit subject select, and I'm going to see how well this selects the subject. You know, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. If you look at that, if you look around the edges. Sometimes what I like to do is that, and then I will take my lasso tool, which I'm just going to click L on my keyboard. I will take my lasso tool, I will hold Shift to add to the selection. You can tell that I'm adding to my selection because if I hold Alt, it adds that little minus button because then I know that I'm going to be subtracting from. But if I hold Shift, it puts a little plus button there, which means that whatever selection I make is going to be an addition to the selection that I've already got going here. I'm going to zoom in here. It's not going to erase the selection that I do. If you do accidentally click in some type of way that removes your selection from being visible to you, like you deselect by accident, all you have to do is just Command Z. Because that was the previous state of your file, and if you do Command Z once, you will be fine. I'm not going to get too precious with this at the moment because we do have limited time, so I'm just going to come through and add all this stuff back that is on the very edges of this, because I am going to have him on the edge just hanging out like, hey man, look at me, I'm in space, and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to say Control J, hide this, and then I'm going to bump him into the corner, and he's just kind of floating out there having a great time. I might even use levels on this just to make it more believable that he's in this scene with that moon. That moon has got like some pretty harsh light, so I might even kind of change his trajectory here so that the lighting situation is the same. And then I could do Control L, pull up my levels, similar to what we used yesterday. And then I could I'm going to bump down the midtones a little bit, make it a little darker there, and then bump up the highlights there so that it is a little bit brighter. Boom. Boom. And then you guys can just kind of play from there, whatever you would like to add. I'm going to group some of these layers. Sometimes what I like to do when I'm not sure if I want to get rid of layers in my file, this is kind of a tip for your own organization. If you have some layers sort of like that where you're not really using them, but you don't know if you want to remove them from your file because maybe you'll come back for parts of them later, what I like to do is make a group of them and just call it trash. And I hide that group and I put it at the very top or the very bottom, perhaps under my background. And what that does is it allows me to just drag and drop things into that folder and disappear them from sight so that I don't have to mess with them. But they are there, so if I'm like, you know, I actually really wanted that space texture from my astronaut image, I can actually go in there and bring it back into the main files, which really helps me to stay organized. So let's see, I've got our little planet that I made you folks. And I'm gonna maybe show you folks how I made this little planet, because we can just put like little soft planets in the back. I think that'll be really cool. Maybe if I had more time, I would make them match a little bit better. But this is basically how I did that. I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna make a new layer. I'm gonna go Control-Shift-N. And I am just going to grab my shape tool. You can do this with an ellipse tool, like ellipse selection tool, if you want, just by right-clicking the rectangular marquee and do the elliptical marquee tool just to create a circle or whatever you want. I actually like to do this with the ellipse tool because it adds a background color. So before I drag this out, I am going to remove the stroke at the top here. I'm going to grab this, hit this fill here, and I am going to select kind of a blue color. I think that's going to do it for me. And I'm going to drag this out, and remember, if you want it to adhere to a perfect circle, all you have to do is hold Shift while you're dragging out. And if you want to move that while you're creating it, all you have to do is hold the space bar as well, and you can actually drag that around where you want it. So now that I have this, I'm just going to release and make that a circle. And then I'm going to go Control-Shift-N to make a new layer, and I'm going to use clipping mask again. Clipping masks is something that I will probably return to in almost all of these challenges, just because it's a very quick and easy way to add a little bit of texture. So what I'm going to do is on this clipping mask, first of all, I'm going to right click my layer and say create clipping mask. Basically what that's going to do, if you were not here the other days, is whatever I put on this layer is only going to extend to the borders of the layer that is directly under it. So now I can grab my brush tool. This is a cool way to create planets that you can do without a stylus. You do not need a stylus to do this. I'm going to make my brush really large, maybe like that. It's just slightly smaller than my actual ellipse here. I'm going to hold Alt and select that color just to make sure I'm on that same blue. I'm going to pull up my colors panel. I'm going to grab a brighter color, and I'm going to come in here and kind of brighten this up. My brush is on a pretty low opacity, so I'm going to crank it up. I'm going to hit 8 on my keyboard to bring my brush to 80%. And I'm just going to add some brightness there, and then maybe I'll come down into this purple, like a blue color, and I'm just going to click around the edges. And what that does is it just adds a little bit of depth, right? It didn't take too long at all to make that look just a little bit 3D, which is kind of neat. You folks can kind of be as precious with this as you want, but I do not want to spend too much time on it because we've got a few more things I want to do in the next couple of minutes. And then I'm gonna actually grab like a concrete texture that I thought was pretty cool. So I'm gonna press F on my keyboard twice to bring me back into that previous view of Photoshop. I've got this moon texture here. I'm going to unlock this. I'm going to grab this layer and drag it to my starter file here. I'm going to drop this above, and I'm going to create a clipping mask out of this as well. Boom. So now what I can do, let me go back into this view. I'm going to Command T to free transform. I'm going to get kind of this, I really like that little crater on the edge there, and I like all this other texture. I'm going to hold Shift and maybe drag it in a little bit like that. And then I'm going to put this on a blending mode. I'm thinking like soft light could be cool, or overlay looks pretty cool actually. And then I'll hold Shift and select the top and bottom most layer that I want to group together. And I'm going to say Control G. I'm going to call this moon. And I've created a moon. which is pretty neat. So I can come in here and I can transform this and I can move it around however I like and yada yada. You guys can place these wherever you want. I might even put, like, maybe that's not a moon. Maybe this is just a gray planet and it has a moon of its own circulating in some way, which might be cool, you know? Just kind of have fun with it. Use your imaginations. This is a very fantastical kind of challenge theme, so you folks can really get in and do what you want. I'm going to kind of darken this edge of this to kind of blend it in here because I think that looks super cool, just to give it a little bit of darkness over there. Little dark side of the moon. Put that out there. You could even do something like maybe you want to grab the shape tool again, maybe put a stroke on it this time. Maybe we can grab like a light blue color. Maybe we can take the fill out of it, turn the fill off, and then maybe we can make a little ring like so. Put this here. Boom. Maybe we can do something like that. I'm going to go back to my layers. I'm going to come down and bring this to the little planet shape there. I'm going to Control T to free transform. I'm going to tilt that a little bit. Yes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold Control, click the layer for that planet so that everything is selected. And then I'm going to come up to this ellipse, and there's a lot of ways you can do this. You could mask this if you want, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to rasterize this ellipse, and within this selection, I'm just going to erase this so that it goes behind. You don't have to do it that way, but like I said, for the sake of time, I'm just, you know, quickly getting that in there. But I can add a little, you know, a little thing like that if I want. I could add all kinds of spaceships and whatnot. So that's no moon. Thank you, Sam Peterson, for the Star Wars call out. I was waiting for it. But there's a lot of stuff that you could do with this. So have fun. I already saw some folks in the Discord who were kind of creating their own planets. I see Sean in here has got like a lot of really cool stuff going on already here. And who was it that used the liquefy up at the top here? That was so cool. PMAC, just using liquefy tool within that circle to kind of drag things around. It kind of looks like a purpley green Jupiter, which is really cool. So have fun. Add some images in, add all kinds of whatever you folks want. If you are not really a science fiction person, maybe step outside of your comfort zone and try to do something that is a little more space themed. And if you really, really don't want to do space, that is also totally fine, because as always with these challenges, they are meant as a stepping stone to kind of help you get an idea about how to use the tools, how to maybe use them in a different way than you have ever used them before. But you don't necessarily have to do exactly what I do. This is just to get you going, get you doing some work. I've seen some people here in the Discord that have posted unrelated things or pieces that are themed differently. See, way behind in challenges, working on number 2 for too long, Max Flex says. And we did create badges, but this isn't really a space badge. This is like a sports badge, but he kind of took this challenge and made it his own, which is awesome. So make the challenge your own if you need to. It has been a blast being able to be here again to teach you guys some cool stuff in Photoshop. Don't miss tomorrow's challenge because it's going to be awesome. I've got some pretty cool new things to pull out of my magic hat for you folks. And yeah, definitely stay tuned. We've got an action-packed day of design coming up after me. I am not the only stream on today. There are so many more wonderful designers who are going to be sharing their knowledge with you for the rest of the afternoon. And if you're over on YouTube, come over to Behance because we are chatting and having a good time on behance.net/live. And you can also, if you're over here on Behance, you'll have a chance to win a prize today because we have giveaways going on. So I'm going to take off, but thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been wonderful, and I will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Adios, everyone.